everyone, Jason Gilbo here with Chris Etherington, taking a look at DraftKings this week for PGA, Wells Fargo Championship on our hands. It feels like it's been months since I've seen you. It really does.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it was a nice little week off last week with the Sierra Classic having a team event, and DraftKings decided not to do anything with that. So yeah, it was just nice to have a week off, not having to do any research. And by Wednesday night, I was just bored out of my mind. Basically, I just didn't know what to do. I'm very glad right now, very excited that we're back in the saddle and having the Wells Fargo at our hands for this week.
Yeah, I'm looking at this week. I mean, even prior weeks before the week off, it was kind of a lackluster field for some of those events. This week, I mean, at least we get a couple top options as far as bigger names. You and I mean, talking before we hopped on here, as far as ownership goes, I mean, you got four guys over or double digits. Dustin Johnson, a monster, $13,000 on DK. With the back issue, I mean, there's a lot kind of up in the air surrounding him.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote him up as well as John Rahm this week. I'm going to play both this week. There's no point in fading those two. You got DJ basically first in the field for grades to regulation and also birdie up better percentage. And yeah, I mean, with his recent back injury from falling down the stairs before the Masters on Thursday, I don't know if that's going to scare people off. It may or may not, but I just don't think people might pay that high for him. This is the first time in a while when we saw a player price at 13,000. So it's going to be interesting to see where people will go this week for Dustin.
Yeah, I think looking through the field and just looking through the guys that, I'm on, the guys that you're on for this week, we talked about the mid-range. It's a lot of names that we don't like the prices are. We feel like they're overpriced. We talked about some cheap guys. So, I mean, I think that might be the only thing that can help if you want to play Dustin Johnson this week is the fact that there are cheap options to kind of go stars and scrubs.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys that we'll mention later on that are less than 7,000, which I think are a little mispriced and should be at least 1,000 more, if not 2,000 more. When you go down to the 9,000 range, there's really only two guys that are priced right. Everyone else is just overpriced, in my opinion. It's very funny seeing the prices next to some of these players.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys, I mean, as you said, underpriced, but also overpriced. Sticking up top real quick, I mean, Johnson obviously in play, John Rahm in play. You and I were talking about possible kind of ownership. I like Adam Scott here as kind of a leverage play off of the other top names because I think he's going to come as the lowest owned. You said Mickelson, he's always the guy who draws ownership just because he's Phil Mickelson. Adam Scott, I mean, playing well this year, hasn't done anything flashy, but, a couple top 15s in his name. A little bit cheaper. I mean, obviously 13,000 cheaper than Johnson, 1,000 cheaper than Rahm. I kind of don't mind starting off there in a GPP.
Yeah, when you're playing Turbis this week, I really like going to Scott. He's definitely going to be overlooked. With Phil, he just has that floor of ownership. It's going to be at least 15%, possibly 20% at least, which it actually could go higher than that by the end of this week. But for Scott, I mean, with the ninth place finish at the Masters, he's also ranked 18th in birdie or better right now. Yeah, with him being sandwiched between Mickelson and Paul Casey, I think he's going to be around that 12%, 10% mark. He's going to be overlooked for this week.
And Paul Casey's the guy that you're looking at this week. I mean, starting to round back in form here.
Yeah, he had a rough start at the Sony and a few weeks after that. But it does look like he has found his putter for the most part. He does still miss a few putts inside the 5 feet range, but I mean, with his stats, he's in the top 15 for both in greaves to regulation and also proximity. With a sixth place finish at the Masters. Uh, for cash games, I think Casey might be a fine start for your teams this week.
Yeah, I like Casey. I think he's by far the best out of the 9K range. You and I were not a fan of, pricing of really just range in general. Reed, too expensive. Webb Simpson's not a guy that I'm particularly thrilled with. Haas is a guy that we talked about who, if you do want to play that mid nines, I mean, he's not bad.
Yeah, for me personally, I think Casey and Haas are really the only two players I'm looking at in the 9,000 range. Patrick Reed is one of those guys where it's like, what have you done for me lately? He just hasn't done much at all this year. And for him to be at 9,800, that's just asking way too much for him. Same with Webb. I think he's about at least 1,000 more than what he should be. And then you go down to Bud Cully at 94. He's at least 2,000 more than what I would like to see for Bud Cully. Yeah, he had 2 top 10 finishes in his last 6, but at 9,400 with his stats just being average overall, that's just way too much for me. I just gotta fade him for this week.
Yeah, I think if I'm making a move, I think Molinari, Wesley Bryan are the two guys that I'll do it with. And for me, I don't think I'll even go to them in cash games. I think they're more just GPP moves because not that I think they have low floors, but I just, I am going to build a little bit differently in cash games. I think I might build a little more even in GPPs.
Yeah, for Molinari with his should make cuts and with a 33rd, 22nd, and also being ranked in 23rd for birdie a better percentage and also 14th for par 5 scoring at 9,200. That is a little steep for me personally, but for tournaments, I think Molinari is a fine play. And then Wesley Bryan coming off a win from the RBC Heritage. He's being ranked right now at 28th in proximity, and he's in the top 50 for send save percentage. So 90 to 100 for him. Again, he's a little steep for me, but for tournaments, I think a lot of people are going to think like that, and he's going to be overlooked. He's going to be just like Molinari. He's just going to be a fine tournament play for this week.
I think other options in that range that people feel pretty comfortable with. I mean, Lucas Glover, Kevin Kistner should draw some higher ownership. Decent guys pretty much in all formats. I mean, I don't mind those two in cash games.
Yeah, I really like Glover this week. He's going to be my dark horse for this week. He's ranked 3rd in greaves regulation, 8th in proximity, and 31st in birdie or better for this week, with a 32nd place finish at the RBC Heritage. At 8,600, that is a fine price for Glover. And for ownership purposes, I think he's going to be somewhat popular, but not too popular than the guys at the top. But I don't care. I just really like his stats and how he's playing right now. I'm just going to play him in most of my lineups for this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, he's going to be a real core player for me as well. A guy I like to toss in a few GPPs is Daniel Berger. I mean, upside's always there with him, but Unfortunately, this guy just misses way too many cuts to be a cash game guy for me. I do like him here, though. I mean, I think the upside's run. I think he's a good spin off of Kistner, who I think will obviously have the higher ownership.
Yeah, if people watched the tournament last week at the Zurich, they will see that Kisner and Scott Brown just went on a birdie rampage, basically. So people are going to see that, and they're going to see his price at 84. He's going to be very popular, probably top 3 in ownership, if I had to guess. For Berger, he is ranked 14th in birdie or better percentage right now, and he is actually getting into form. If you look at his recent history, he was 5th at the Shell and 27th at the Masters. So with that in mind, and with him being right underneath Kisner and Glover, I think Berger is going to be a fine tournament play for this week.
I was kind of caught off guard. I figured Louis' price would be a little bit higher. I mean, I guess if you want to talk pricing up guys, which it seems DK kind of did with some of these names, I figured he'd be the one that they maybe mark up a little bit more.
Yeah, I was joking earlier that I think Louis should be replaced with Bud Cully at 94. I think Louis at 81 is too cheap for him. He's almost at an auto play right now. He only played the Masters in the last 6 weeks. He was basically in the middle of the pack there, and for grades and regulation, he's ranking 44th right now. Yeah, at 8,100, there should be no worries for him to contend this week, especially with other names around him. You kind of have to play him this week. There's nothing else to say about him at 8,100.
Yeah, I mean, perfect price for him. And as far as other guys in that range, we talked a little bit about William McGirt, 7,900. Another tournament guy where, the upside's certainly there. And Vegas is liking him a lot this week.
Yeah, usually one of the first things I like to do is look at Vegas odds, obviously before the pricing comes out, just to see where the guys are. McGirt right now is in the top 10 for Vegas odds, and for him to be at 7,900, I think that's a lot of value for McGirt. Obviously, it looks like Vegas knows something than DraftKings right now. He finished 22nd at the Masters and a 3rd at the RBC Heritage. So he is getting into form, and with his stats, he's ranked 22nd for grades to regulation and 47th for proximity. So not only is he hitting the greens, but he's also hitting it somewhat close to the pin. So at 7,900 again, I think it's just a nice value for McGirt this week. He might be another dark horse to look at as well.
JT Poston's another guy I was taking a look at this week. I mean, been in solid form. His worst finish is 55th at Houston Open. Other than that, he's been pretty solid, hovering around top 25. Cheap guy. In his greens and regulation, about 70%. 7,700, I just feel like is a reasonable price. I think cash game wise, I don't mind going down to him.
Yeah, with this recent history, he's made his last 3 cuts in the last 6 weeks. He was 10th at the Puerto Rico, 27th at the Falero. So if you look at that and you look at his birdie or better percentage, ranking at 62nd right now. With him getting into form, just like McGirt, at 7,700, I think he's going to be a fine play for tournaments this week. I think he's going to be probably a little bit popular around these guys, but with him getting into form, again, I just don't care about the ownership down here. I think he's just going to be a fine play for tournaments this week.
Below the 7K mark, I mean, a couple notable names. I mean, Luke List is one of them. I feel like kind of stands out. Thoughts on him?
Yeah, for stats wise, I mean, he is really good, really solid. He's 10th at birdie or better. He's second in par 5. He has missed his last 2 cuts, but he was third at the Shell Houston Open. So, I mean, he's totally boom or bust at this point. And at 6,900, if he makes the cut, that's really all you're looking for him. For me personally, I think there's a couple guys cheaper that I like, and I'm just going to have to fade him for the week.
Yeah, as far as cheap guys, Stuart Sink was one I was looking at. I mean, 6,400. This guy, I mean, if you want 60 DK points, 60, 65 DK points at his price, I mean, he just kind of keeps delivering it. I mean, never really a ton of upside, but it's like if you're paying for a Dustin Johnson, you know, trying to get a lot of high price guys in, I don't think Sink's a bad kind of 6 golfer to fill your lineups with.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sink is definitely getting into form. He has basically average, just above average in stats. If he makes the cut, you could just basically bank a top 30 out of him. And for him to be at 6,400, that is pure value. That's basically all you want from the guys down here is to make the cut and to basically finish in the top 30. And he's been doing that a lot lately. So I really like Sink for this week.
And I know Alex Noren was another guy, 6,600, that you were looking at below 7K mark. I know he's been one of the cheaper guys you've been kind of hinting at throughout the show.
Yeah, he was the one guy that I said that was below 7 that I think should be at least 2,000 more. If you look at the world rankings, he's ranked number 10 right now. So for him to be down here at 6,600, I think it's a little ludicrous. I just don't know why he's down here with the guys like John Peterson, Jonathan Randolph. I really don't know why he's down here with those guys. So at 66 with Alex Noren, yeah, he missed the cut at the Masters, but I think he had a bad draw for that week. So I'm just not going to take a look into that. And he's one of the best players on the European Tour, hitting greens right now. So he's going to be in the bulk of my lineups for this week.
Yeah, I think those, you know, him and Sink are possible 2 options to kind of kick things off to open up some salary for those lineups.
I agree. Those 2 guys seems to be the most safer options, especially if you want to pay up to John Rahm or Dustin Johnson for cash. Even for tournaments, these 2 guys just seem a lot safer than most of these guys down here.
And this is kind of a weird week because, I mean, Canadian corner, I mean, we got nothing from you.
Yeah, normally I would go and pick a Canadian. The only Canadian that I really like right now is David Hearn. I mean, he'll be a nice little pivot from the other guys around here. So maybe David Hearn as a Canadian guy. I mean, other than him, there's really no one else that's playing this week that I like. So, yeah, David Hearn for Canada, and that's it for me.
Yeah, I had to force your hand a little bit because I know the top Canadian golfers are out this week. So
yeah,
seen if you could dig deep, and you did.
Yeah, I just remember that I saw David Hearn playing this week, so I'm like, yeah, David Hearn is the guy that I wouldn't mind playing. But yeah, you got Hadwin, and I believe is probably Nick Taylor's playing this week. I'm not sure, but yeah, David Hearn at 7,000. I mean, ranking 20th at proximity, ranking 10th and sense save percentage. Right now at 7,000, he's the guy to go to for Canadians for this week.
Yes, I mean, if you're playing in a league where you have to play one or two Canadians, then there you go.
Yep, exactly.
So that's going to wrap things up here. If you want to check out Chris's core, you can head over to dayfantasycafe.com, as well as our optimizer, which is up and running for this week. And good luck, guys.